And we are recording with the one, the only Dr. Robert Malone on Monday, December 5th, 2022 at 4:20 p.m. Eastern Time. His first episode in my new studio, my Miami back VIP Coke room that has become the studio. And I thought, as I've told you and told multiple people questioning about the lighting configuration, I thought they changed colors, but that's what you get when you use the lowest bidder, which is China. And instead, you just have a neon blue room. Might as well lean into it. And that's just what it is. I don't want to hear anybody's criticism. I don't care. It's a blue room now. But you you sent me an article you wrote on your Substack, and I'll put it in the description, as well as your book, Lies My Government Told Me, which I discussed 2 weeks ago with Tony. It's a fantastic book, and I think we can get into it in a little bit. It will actually tie into this conversation. But the article you wrote, "Sins of Information Warfare," which is again ties into, I think, the basis to push back against any and all accusations of you being deep state or controlled opposition. Because let's look at Eisenhower, military industrial complex. He didn't gain anything from that speech. There's no book tour, and he wasn't even leveraging accusations at any individual company, right? Northrop Grumman or so. It was just a statement about the concentration of wealth and industrial might could be bad. There's nothing to be gained from that. If somebody sets out and tells you to listen to your inner voice, do unto others, work hard, and, sacrifice and hard work yields rewards, there's no cashing in moment on that. Those are truisms that benefit you, the individual. And your article goes along those same lines about we can't give in to the temptations of, well, the other side's doing it, so we have to do it. We're sitting on the sidelines and they're fighting a war. No, and it's not just some high-minded ivory tower statement. You really can't become the thing you're fighting, because then there's no point in fighting it. Just join the winning side, right? So there is importance in planting your feet and not doing, even in the bloodthirsty battle of the Pacific or battles of the Pacific, we still took Japanese POWs. We didn't cut off their genitals. We didn't light them on fire. And that may seem irking if you're in the fight on Iwo Jima. You might say, why don't we do it against them? There is value in pursuing a fight and doing it morally and backing up facts and saying, no, that's not right. And saying, no, we can't militantly go do this. And, well, we're in charge of Twitter now. We should censor them. No, not at all. And that's kind of what your article fleshed out was. We can't use false accusations. We can't use drama. We can't issue a lie and then quietly do a retraction. It is important to stay true to yourself, because then there's no point in fighting if you become the evil that you're fighting. And if that's the case, the evil just transferred to you. It's just like momentum, or it's heat. It never actually went anywhere. It just transferred to you like a demon jumping bodies. But as always, I have now ranted for 5 minutes without letting you get in a word. So, Dr. Malone, how are you doing?
Well, thanks for the summary.
Of course.
I think this topic is super important. There's, as you know, there's strategy and there's tactics. And tactics are more short-term battlefield. It's really easy in the moment to get wrapped up in this punch counterpunch. He said, she said, and often there's a deep tribalism associated with it. Hooray for our side, and it's okay to do, as you said, the logic that some of my colleagues advocate is that they're doing it to us, and therefore it's okay for us to do it to them. They are um, using hyperbole and weaponizing falsehoods, uh, engaging in slander, defamation. This is, after all, unrestricted information warfare, and there is no ethics and there's no rules of engagement. This is fifth generation warfare, and it's a battle for minds and souls. And so we should deploy whatever's necessary in order to win, in order to make our point. And if that requires some hyperbole, if that requires that we make wild accusations against our opponents, and clearly state that they are using these vaccine products to support a depopulation agenda, or then it's okay for it's okay for us to say these things, even though we can't substantiate it, because the only way to break through the wall of information warfare that is confronting us on the part of our opponents, highly funded, coming from the U.S. government, is, for instance, now going to spend $475 million trying to convince all of us to take the booster, just as one example. And they spent over $1 billion with the CDC for all those glitzy productions of, kind of Broadway musical type stuff, et cetera, and buying influencers on TikTok, et cetera, and celebrities from Hollywood to advance the logic that everybody should accept these unlicensed medical products. So they're doing it to us, and we need to do it to them. And it's okay because they've already established that these are within the realm of acceptable battlefield tactics in this particular information war that we're in. And thank you for your succinct summary that it's my opinion that, well, let me put it this way. The Malone doctrine is all about integrity. I didn't write it. Ed Dowd and his colleagues on Maui wrote it. But I believe it. I believe in the logic of doing your best to act with integrity and maintain integrity. And if you're going to make a statement about somebody or something, you have an obligation to show the data, the information, the documents, whatever, the receipts that back up that position. And if you don't have those receipts, then don't say it. I've said many, many times through this, when people ask me, well, what is Tony Fauci really thinking? What's really going on in Klaus Schwab's head? Why does Harari say what he says, or Tedros, or whatever? And repeatedly I've had to say, I'm sorry, I'm trained as a specialist for expert witness purposes by some high-end lawyers. And the first thing they taught me was, do not speculate about somebody's motives, because you can't know it. None of us can read minds. I'm sorry. And so I can't know what's really going on in Klaus Schwab's head, or Bill Gates' head, or Tony Fauci's head, or whatever. I can observe their behaviors. I can read their writings. I can listen to their statements, and I can say they've done these things, they've said these things, they've written these things, and therefore we can infer that those are things that they believe. But is that really what's driving this set of behaviors? Is that really what's behind the deployment of the mRNA vaccine? Is some intended strategy to depopulate the world and stop reproductive health in Westerners all over the world? It's hard. for me to imagine that they would be that twisted that they would do so. It's possible. There are psychopaths, but to come out and say flatly, this is what's going on in the absence of clear and compelling evidence, I think is irresponsible. Likewise, to use, and in that essay, thank you for, wherein I had cross-posted back when I was on Twitter a video montage of people dying suddenly.
Mhm.
And actually, I know who put it together. I was just on a boat with them. I'll just leave that there. But one of the clips in that was apparently a young man dying on the field. Great tragedy. And it was used as an example of someone dying suddenly after vaccination, a young male. And I just cross-posted it. I had nothing to do with building the video or whatever. And out of the blue, I get a legal letter from the family, the parents of this young man, accusing me of weaponizing his death for political purposes, and explaining that this death occurred before the vaccine deployment. He had not accepted the vaccine. It had nothing to do with the vaccines. And I needed to cease and desist or they would sue me. And I was horrified that somehow inadvertently I had caused pain for this family and these parents. Unknowingly, inadvertently, I didn't put it together. I didn't personally fact check it, but I did cross-post it. And so I wrote an apology. I immediately deleted the tweet, etc. But when people take information, they take liberties with information, such as the same person responsible for this video that we're speaking about died suddenly, has previously posted a image that was from an children's oncology ward of a young person, and that young person's illness had absolutely nothing to do with the vaccine, but it was being asserted that that was the case. I just don't think that's okay. And I think it is important to say, no, that's not okay. That's not who we are. I think personally, we have to hold ourselves to higher standards. And I take a certain amount of pleasure in this book being listed as #1 in physician-patient bioethics. I of all the things having to do with this book, the thing that gives me the greatest pleasure is to be able to say I have a bioethics bestseller. That's really cool. I think personally, as you know, in terms of where I'm at and where I'm coming from, to be able to say, yeah, I took a position, a principled position. I said, no, this is not right. This is not ethical. And once you stake that out, then the burden becomes double, that you have to act ethically. Otherwise, you're a hypocrite.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the whole Malone doctrine and integrity and all that. So I try to live my life that way. And I suggest that if we want to be better than our opponents that believe that morality and ethics are fungible, they're plastic, they can be used and manipulated, and they're situational. If we don't want to, if we are criticizing our opponents for these behaviors, I think it's doubly on us to make sure that we don't transgress in a similar way. So that's when I was one of the first to come out and say in that Substack, but there were a couple others preceding me, that the day before I had cross-posted, and the trolls just attacked me like a swarm. Even on Getter, which normally is relatively troll-free, at least in my followers. But I was certainly one of the first that really said, no, this is not okay. and it attracted a lot of hate, and still is. And a lot of that is wrapped around the idea, well, at least it got a lot of people's attention. And so it was justified to use hyperbole and these various, let's say, artistic license in presenting what was presented. And since that time, it's now been a week or so, we have more and more people coming out saying, no, this isn't right. This isn't who we are. This is not okay. And also noting that in doing this, in breaching our own moral standards, we've given license to our opponents to point out our hypocrisy.
Mm-hmm.
And so these things are weaponized, and we all get painted with the same brush. Our opponents don't discriminate between the nuance of, well, this person said, no, this isn't good. They paint all of us with that same brush. And this has long been known. We've seen multiple examples of this, which gives rise to the thesis or the suspicion that, I think it raises the question, could this have been intentional? And it's always a possibility. We're now in a landscape in which everything is possible. We probably do have infiltrators. We probably do have disruptors. We probably do have people that are our opponents operating in a fifth generational warfare landscape that are using, we could call them dark arts or whatever, or there's stronger language that comes out of the Nixon era having to do with rats and intercourse. But
there's also, to interrupt, from that same era, there's also declassified FBI terminology, and it's called COINTELPRO. This isn't new at all. Divide and conquer, seed distrust and doubt amongst the enemy ranks.
And my understanding from people that are experts in the CCP, this is also a common strategy there.
Yes.
So, I think that personally, I took a stand and I said, no, this is not okay. Even though there's some good here, in that it's alerting people about these blood clots that have been known quite a while. And Ryan Cole, I think, gets a gold star for being one of the first to talk about it. But I'm not okay with using images and clips that fit the narrative but are not accurately what they claim to be. As I mentioned in the essay, I know from personal experience, because I was one of the interviewees in the Jeff Hayes movie on the real Anthony Fauci, that I had said some things during the interview. One, I don't even remember what it was in particular, that was in one of the clips they wanted to use, and I couldn't back it up with a specific citation, and so it hit the cutting room floor. People went over that film with a fine-tooth comb, just like they did with Bobby's book on the real Anthony Fauci, and stuff that could not be documented and cited was left behind. And I think that, personally, I believe that is the standard we need to aspire to, and that it's not okay to say, well, we put this together on the fly for only $15,000, and so we got a few things wrong, but mostly it's right, and it's serving the. I don't think that's okay, and I think we do need to take personal responsibility for the content we put out.
There's sorry.
That's okay.
There's there's nothing wrong with you can't expect to be infallible and perfect. Like, of course, right. You're going to retweet something if there's something. I'm sure there are. I've done it. This is episode 1014. I'm sure more often than not, I personally have stated things that are not factual. That's fine. You get older. You figure it out. Do you act on it then when you find out you've done something wrong? And by justifying that the other side is doing it, you really have to like flow chart it out and go, why are we fighting the Nazis? And not present day people I disagree with. I mean the actual Third Reich. Why am I fighting the Imperial Japanese? Well, they're using slave labor, they're massacring, they're carrying out a Holocaust, and they're invading sovereign nations. Okay. If we then do anything we can to beat them, including mirroring them, not only are we becoming the thing we hate, they are going to double down and increase the thing that we're trying to stop. So by spreading lies and manipulating data, we are giving the very enemy that we have by our actions shown, not just by what we practice, by what we preach, but by we practice. Hey, we're willing to put out misinformation to stop the left who want a Marxist America. They're then going to use those actions that we do against us. You will never aid the enemy that you truly think is evil. And not only that, they are going to go further because now we have leveled the playing field. Yeah. The reason why they originally lied and used misinformation and used gaslighting is because they were willing to use any weapon against us, including the ones we weren't willing to use. So by leveling the playing field, they are now, by their very nature, going to go for something even further, whatever that is, physical violence, burning things down, assassinations, because their entire warfare is based on asymmetry. So we are pushing them towards that. It's like the Streisand effect. By mirroring it, you are pushing the very thing you claim to fight. Now, if deep down inside you're just a power-hungry psychopath and you're using the resistance and censorship and we're for America, like a psychopath would do, you would choose your side and you would emulate those facets. That's fine. You're a demon, but I'd almost respect the game. I'd be like, oh, you want to take control, so you can put your enemies in the camps. Like, okay, you're a demon, but I respect the game, I guess, in a objective fact or objective sense. But if you actually want things to be better, you won't do that. There was an article in Popular Science or Popular Mechanics years and years ago. It was an interview with the Secretary of the Air Force talking about the next generation fighter after the F-22 Raptor. That was like 15 years ago, and we're still not at the new one. They just released the B-21 Raider 2 days ago. And they're going on about how the future of weapons, they'll probably be highly autonomous, if not totally autonomous. And they probably won't use physical air-to-air weaponry like a Sidewinder missile. It'll be more particle beams, lasers, directed energy, a lot of SDI stuff. And then he went one step further to go, and it might not even be that they are aircraft. It's one thing to say we won't have fighter pilots. That removes the whole fighter jock mentality. Just like Curtis LeMay, Secretary of the Air Force under Kennedy, he led a bunch of bombing raids in World War II. He hated ICBMs because they weren't gleaming platinum chrome bombers with guys in bomber hats with women on the side. It was very ego-based. Curtis LeMay made a pivot, and he realized that the end goal was to destroy the Soviet Union, and so he went, we'll do missiles. The Secretary of the Air Force said in this article, not only will we not have fighter jock pilots, Top Gun, there might be a day where sixth generation might not have pilots. Seventh generation might not even be aircraft. The Air Force might become a relic. It might be a new just form of, EMP radio waves that shut things down. The idea of it being an airborne craft could be a relic of the past, just like the cavalry now is, I think, Apache helicopters. The old cavalry was horses, right? So, but the point of me saying that is, and it's an odd thing to use defense contractors and killing machines is this point, but is when you have your end goal, if you are truly there for the end goal, which Curtis LeMay was to go beat the enemy, you will drop your ego, you will drop any conceptions you have about what it should look like, and you will pursue it relentlessly. if you have an idea of it, I have to be in charge. Ironically enough, the flag will be behind me. Well, no, now you're the psychopath just using the Republicans, the resistance, the anti-woke crowd as your method to get to control. If you truly care, you won't mind that there is no Tom Cruise. You won't mind that there's not even aircraft turning and burning and breaking the sound barrier. If your end goal is truly a safe American airspace. So if your goal truly is facts, bioethics, the truth, a what's everyone tout, a better world for our children, if those are things you truly believe in, you won't care if you don't get a book deal. You won't care if you upset your side because we need to implement the same weapons they're using. If I'll use a much simpler example than that entire tirade I just went on. When you type in an address to a distant place in another city, you're not married to which highway you take or which back road you take. It just takes you on the quickest way. And if you're cheap, you can even opt the one without tolls. You're not married to which exit you get off on. You don't look at an exit ramp and go, "Oh, for God's sake." No, you just go along listening to a podcast. Hopefully this one, if you have a heart. But you don't care because it just gets you to the destination. Because your intention is to get to the destination, not which road you're on, not which skyline you see. That's what it is. Now, if you're married to an idea of a highway or a road, you're impartial and your ego's in the way. If you really just want to get to the place, you'll get to the place. And if you want a world with less violations of bioethics, with less censorship, with less hatred, you'll go along that route, even if it means you don't make money hand over fist, even if it means people accuse you of being deep state or COINTELPRO, you won't care. So the very way in which you act reveals your hand, which is kind of a beautiful thing. And like you said, it doesn't make it better that you get death threats or that people hate you or they unsubscribe from your podcast, right? But it's very easy. You just follow the route that you should go on. Maybe it means no bombers and instead it's going to be ICBMs. Whatever. If the goal is to kill the Soviets, you'll find a way. And I know that's again kind of a weird analogy to use because it's supposed to be all bright and flowery. I'm talking about weapons, but I think you get the point. You're a smart guy.
So to your point, um, I did have people unsubscribe uh, um, with all these attacks and defamation. It truly is defamation. Um, uh, my attorney tells me that there's been some recent cases that have established that accusing somebody of being deep state is now considered defamatory. Uh, Using apparently the words mis and disinformation are um, akin to asserting that someone is a fraud, and that is defamation. So the courts are catching up with this language that's been distorted and weaponized, and folks, there are those who are asserting that freedom of speech is unrestricted, that they have the right to say whatever they want to say, um, and they don't seem to be, let's say, they don't seem to have been tutored in the legal interpretations of the First Amendment, which is not full unrestricted right to say whatever you want, and of course the common example of that is you don't have the right to yell fire in a crowded theater. You don't have the right to defame somebody. Those are not guaranteed by the First Amendment. The First Amendment has to do with the government restricting your ability to speak. But unfortunately, as some people get so wrapped up around things, they're just going to have the courts instruct them as to what the meaning of the First Amendment is, and I can't do that for them. But this environment we're in right now, where we've been subjected to so much fear and weaponized information, I think has given rise to a culture a cultural moment where nobody is really sure what's true. And we're all second guessing ourselves. So giving benefit of the doubt, which may or may not be justified, I can understand why people would be erring on the side of suspicion after all we've experienced. And maybe I'm being overly empathetic and giving those in that space too much credit. But I think that this is another symptom of the breakdown of social norms in society in general that is a logical consequence of what we've all experienced. That this business model of stoking rage and fear has become so widespread and so pervasive. It's when you have this gets to the bully pulpit. I really think it's important, personally. I sincerely believe that the behaviors of those which are anointed as our leaders is important in that it sets normative behavior for the entire culture. And if we have a leader who revels in being a bully, then we will see a lot more bullying all the way down to schoolyards. If we have a leader that or leaders that believe that it's appropriate to exploit their office for personal gain, then that serves as a signal to the entire culture that that's acceptable behavior. When we have people who, the masters of the universe on Wall Street, that believe in this mantra, "He who dies with the most toys wins," he who has the fanciest jet or whatever, this worshiping, to borrow a phrase from many of my devoutly Christian friends, worshiping mammon gives rise to distortions, and it becomes the norm. Well, we all start to define ourselves by how much money we have, how many goods we control, what our assets are. And I personally believe that's something that is contributing to the illness that we're all suffering from right now. That we believe that our value can be measured in our assets and our bank account, as opposed to what we contribute to each other and the way we live our lives, and the things that give us joy and the way that we give joy to others. I think that's where the value of living comes from, the joy of living. So this rise of these very divisive behaviors, where we're accusing each other of heinous crimes openly, routinely, like being a mass murderer. I think that's symptomatic of a broader degradation of society and social norms, that if we allow that to become acceptable, we are all diminished. And the converse, if we wish, as you point out, if we wish to live and have our children grow up in a world that is more equitable more supportive and healthy psychologically, we have to live it now. And it's really, really tough. I was on an earlier podcast today talking about this with another gentleman. It's really, really tough to be a true leader, as opposed to this kind of leader-follower model that many of our politicians espouse. If you're really a sovereign person, living independently, making your own decisions, you are intrinsically a warrior and a leader. You can't be otherwise. And as you point out, you'll make mistakes, but if you act with courage and integrity, and follow that little voice, that heart voice, that some might call the soul, you'll be true to yourself, and it seems that that's the best way to avoid getting caught up in the daily conflict and drama. It's so easy to get seduced by the tribalism and hooray for our side stuff. And so in this case, just to loop back, I came out with that Substack. I said this wasn't right. I've been attacked. And now more and more people are saying, no, this wasn't right. You were right. Or they're not even saying you were right. They're just saying they're coming to their own conclusions. As has happened all the way through the last 3 years, not to pat myself on the back, but again and again, I've said, this is truth. This is the way forward. This is what's right. And been defamed, slandered, gaslit, blah, blah, blah. And then, 2 weeks later, 4 weeks later, 2 months later, those opinions start to become the norm, the accepted consensus. And I take great pleasure in having injected some of those things into the discourse, and I have no problem if somebody else takes ownership of them and carries them forward and waves the flag. The goal is to get it done. So in some, these individuals that have a business model of stoking outrage, I think we have to be very wary of them. I think they lead us towards a direction that is intrinsically corrupting. That's strong words, but will be used against us, which gives rise to the thesis: if they're doing these things in ways that are really right, florid, are they truly unaware of what they're doing, or are they doing that for some intended purpose? And if so, what is that purpose? And it could be as simple as, well, it generates clicks, and clicks convert to money, and I want money. Or it could be something more nefarious. There's no way for me to know, or for you to know, unless these people suddenly decide to come clean or make some statement. But there's no way to know. There's no way to know if they are controlled opposition or if they're just opportunists. Just like there's no way to know whether the likes of Anthony Fauci or Tedros are pursuing a nefarious agenda, or are they just incompetent? You can't distinguish it, or some blend of the above. There's just no way. So thanks for letting me rant a little bit. I think this is really important because it gets to what our soul is. And I think it's really hard. It's really easy another biblical reference, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. And so we all have some sin. We all have information warfare sins. Some are bigger, some are smaller. I sinned in this sense in cross-posting that video clip. But having done so, when I encountered that this was wrong, this was a sin in that information warfare context, I did my best to rectify it. And I think that's, as you point out, if we all make mistakes, we have all undoubtedly said some things that we regret, or that in retrospect we thought were true, but it turns out they weren't. And the question then is, what do you do about it? Do you own it? And I think that in producing content, because really now we're talking about media in the context of fifth generation warfare, in which in fifth generation warfare, kinetics almost become irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
It's about shaping thought and consensus, and shaping belief systems for large populations, because it's really beliefs that drive warfare and win-loss. And so, as you know, in fifth gen, it's this subtle, dark, or hidden art of warfare to control minds and beliefs, if you're practicing that. And it's really hard to know, that's the goal of fifth gen warfare, is you don't really even know who the opponents are. They're hidden. They're behind the scenes. And so we all have this sense of being manipulated. That's kind of a hallmark. I have a friend who says that you can always tell the sensitive topics in intelligence information warfare environment, because when you get close to them, it's as if they have a electric fence around those topics. And when you get close to the topic, you get a shock. And so you can know whether those sensitive topics by the behavior, by whether or not you get a shock when you get close to them. So we have to kind of use that in a fifth generation warfare environment. We have to kind of triangulate truth. We have to infer truth and meaning in this very complicated landscape through these indirect means. And it gives rise to an environment where you're always seeing stuff in the shadows. You can't trust each other. You can't trust anything. You don't know what is true. It is insidiously corrosive to humanity and to culture. But it's the battlefield they've created for us, and I, and I'm not. All I know is that in this information warfare landscape, the only lodestone, the only North Star is what's in your heart and soul. And you, if you're a warrior committed to truth, if that's how you see the world and yourself, if you're on that hero's journey, and behaving as a warrior, I think that's the only thing that you can do, is be true to yourself, and keep in mind that other key biblical aphorism. What does it benefit a man to gain the world and lose his soul? And as I said in that essay, or one of the others associated, what does it benefit a nation to gain the world and lose its soul? And I think that is the real fight that we have right now, is one in which you're speaking of Curtis LeMay and our opponent in the Soviet Union. I think a case can be made that we are so far from integrity in the governance of our nation state that we have lost our soul. That our desire to gain the world has distorted us to such an extent that we're no longer true to those core beliefs and ethics that we set out to become and to defend. And that, to me, is the most deeply troubling. And I use the example in illustrating this in one of the Substacks. You know, the Nord Stream 1 and 2 is widely acknowledged, but never spoken of as not highly improbable that it was the consequence of German or Russian activities. But no one will say it. Everyone is afraid of the United States right now. And I guess fear is one place you can go. You can rule the world through fear, but it doesn't last. And it's very tenuous, and I sense that we've allowed ourselves to justify our actions on the basis of this kind of belief that anything is acceptable in the service of advancing the economic interests of the powerful within the United States, and I think that we have really damaged ourselves, and somehow we've got to find our way back to the garden. And I personally believe that a nationalist, in the good sense, a nationalist U.S. Committed to limited federal government and committed to those original principles of a strong defense, truly a defense, but not being expansionist, just focusing on the citizens and the boundaries of the United States. And, you know, is that isolationist or is that pragmatic? But the logic that it's acceptable to overthrow governments, employ assassination techniques, deploy propaganda and information warfare against our opponents, to deploy the logic that we must manipulate human genetics and use transhumanist technology and advance that. The logic that we must do that because the Chinese are doing it is akin to the same argument that our opponents are using these things, and therefore we must also, lest we be left behind or be put at a disadvantage. That's explicitly what's being said. Mm-hmm. And it's the same argument. I reject that. We do not become better by assimilating the ethics of our opponents. Over.
There's beautiful. There is something fascinating about, it's like how pyramids were built across cultures on different continents and different millennia, or when ancient peoples would have experiences with psilocybin or mescaline. They all kind of, or even, you know, religions, you really kind of get to the core of them, and a lot of them are, you know, treat others as you would like to be treated. There are some truths that are uncovered, right? You could wipe out humanity tomorrow. Eventually, Newton's laws would arise again. It would be under someone else's name, some other species that evolved. but they'd uncover the core truths of the universe. So even just to use the United States as an example, one country on one continent in one 250-year period, just look at like George Washington or Dwight Eisenhower, or before Eisenhower, General Smedley Butler. They all kind of these aren't guys like me screaming in a room in a microphone. These are the guys that have reached the apex of the United States power structure, and they all come to the same conclusion of isolationism, of defense. Smedley Butler's quote: "He's the most decorated Marine of all time." He gave the original military-industrial complex speech. He gave it about 28 years before Eisenhower did. But his line is: the United States should uh, defend three things: our coasts, our borders, and our Bill of Rights. And that's it. You eventually do kind of hit these truths at the very end of the line, the final leg of the journey. And it does sort of come down to that. It's not popular. People don't like it. I'm sure that there are a lot of World War II veterans throwing their beers at the TV when they saw Eisenhower leaving with saying, by the way, there's a military industrial complex that wants to take over the world, right? And much like you, it's championed on one side and then eventually hated by that side. It means you're doing the right thing. But to kind of pull around to what you said about the soul and about following that truth is another Eisenhower quote. And he met with Kennedy like a couple days before Kennedy took control. And on a side note, I do think it is kind of comical that he met with Kennedy and showed him the continuity of government plans, told him how like half the United States would be wiped out, even picked up a phone in the Oval Office and said Opal 3, and then a helicopter landed on the front lawn ready to take him with armed guards. And then right before Kennedy's inaugurated, Eisenhower gets on TV and he goes, by the way, there's basically this like deep state with God tier power taking over the world. Anyway, peace. And Kennedy's just stuck there like, huh? Right? But other than all of that, Eisenhower also went on like a walk with him that Kennedy later counted as the tongue lashing of a lifetime. And because Eisenhower didn't respect him. He thought he was a young, pretty boy, womanizer, using drugs, all of which were true. But he did tell him that only the difficult problems get to you. If it's easy and a decision can be made and the making of that decision can be used to pad a resume, someone else will do it. Should we not let somebody invade another country? Yeah, that's an easy question. You put it on your resume and now you're a 3-star general instead of a 2-star general. But the hard questions, like should Eisenhower use the 101st Airborne to allow the first black girl to go to a segregated school? Or should Kennedy use an embargo to block off Cuba, but not listen to Curtis LeMay, who wanted to go nuke them? Only the difficult questions get to you. Only something that can truly give you no win. One side will hate you or another side will hate you. Those are the things that are pawned off to you. And you do it because you're the leader. Kennedy wasn't vindicated until like 1990 when we learned that the Cubans actually did have nuclear weapons and they were given permission from Khrushchev to use them at their own discretion. Would have been World War III, but it wasn't for 27 years after Kennedy got popped that he was vindicated. So my point is you have to encompass it. If you want the macrocosm to mirror the microcosm, you have to encompass that. And so almost imagine you are your own nation. Only the difficult questions get to you. The easy critical thinking, it's wrong to kill someone. Yet, of course it is. That's not a bold stance. But the difficult questions, should I say it was wrong to retweet this? Should I say, hey, I thought it was this, but it turned out to be that? It's on me. Those aren't the easy questions because the amount of support you will gain for that is equal to the amount of hatred you'll gain from that. So there is no net profit except for you did the right thing, which, to wrap this all up in a bow, brings me back to college when I was waking up at 4 a.m., working out, taking cold showers, meditating, and drinking like once a semester. And I remember one of my roommates was like, I don't get it. You could take a hot shower. You could go eat at the food court. You could come get shit faced with us on a Friday. All these things are so fun, so enjoyable, so pleasurable, but you choose a painful path. And I remember telling him, I was like, no, 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 like that makes me sound tough. I'm not choosing a painful path. I've found that when you're in a hot shower and you're in it long enough and the hot water starts to run out, you then have to leave because it's getting cold. When you stuff your face with just grilled, fried Southern cooking, you never eat until you have enough. You eat until you're stuffed. When you go have a couple beers, you're already out drinking, so you drink until you're shit-faced. These are all quick pursuits of pleasure that ultimately turn into pain. What may appear as a painful approach, taking a cold shower, meditating, exercising, is actually the least painful path. That's what I found. When you're in a cold shower, you're not worried about the cold water running out. You don't care. When you're dieting, you have a set amount of calories you're consuming that day, and you got your macronutrients, and that's it. You're not thinking, when am I going to get my next meal? You just know I got to eat my 2,300 calories today. It's over. Whatever. It's just done. When you know that you're waking up and you are meditating, you're not going to sit on your phone and scroll through Instagram for that dopamine drip. You're going to sit there and meditate. By removing these things, you are actually pursuing a much more pleasurable path with a lot less pain. So I look at them and I go, you're choosing the hard. I don't get what you're doing. What you're doing is hardcore. I can't do that. I'm choosing the easy path. So what's the point of me saying all this? If it's about accumulating things and wealth and power and women or men or whatever you want, or followers or subscribers, which that doesn't include, you should be subscribing to this podcast. My argument does not apply to that. Subscribe to this podcast right now. But if you're pursuing all of these things, you're pursuing some sort of pleasure or some sort of gratification. What is that for? That is for a relaxed mind, a tranquil mind, an excited, a happy mind, whatever. It's all about a happy mind state. There is a much easier path to that. And it's just doing the right thing. You will sleep better. You will hold yourself higher. People's insults will, as Terrence McKenna said, roll off you like water beating up off of a duck's back. You won't care because you know you are doing the right thing with the knowledge and the information you have at this time. That is better than the penthouse or the $100 million or the Bugatti or all things I would like. But if the true goal is to be in the warm shower in your mind, just do the right thing. You'll sleep like you're on Xanax. You'll work out like you're on meth. You'll be every day is Christmas and that you're joyful. You're appreciative of everything. You don't care. You've reached the end. It's a shortcut. So no, don't take a long hot shower. Work out, meditate, take cold showers. You'll experience less pain than that. So just do the right thing. And it's a shortcut. You don't need to worry about clicks and views and money because you're already at peace. So I don't know. That's my pitch for doing the right thing. I'm kind of running in circles. And yeah, I don't know.
Or another way to say it is be true to yourself, right?
There you go. Much quicker, much more succinct, and much more intelligent, as you often do on this podcast. We play good cop, bad cop. I scream, use vulgar language and expletives, and Dr. Malone says things in a very concise, succinct, soft voice. It's a good cop, bad cop. Either way, we're getting the truth to you. I know you got to run, so we'll wrap this one up. We didn't get into it, so we should do one on your book, Lies My Government Told Me, which is fantastic. And I will use one line from it that I think is very important. And it's when you read an article in the news on something that you're an expert in and you see that it's blatantly false, but then you turn the page and you just accept the rest of the article, the rest of the news articles as accurate. Never once thinking, how do I not know these are all fake? You should carry that into your everyday life. If they lie about COVID, they lie about the war in Iraq, why are they telling the truth about everything else? So I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's you're referring to Michael Crichton's insight.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and I think that, thank you for citing that.
Of course.
The book is intended to be, it has been a journey. Um, and I hope that it can serve to help other people on their journeys. That's the purpose. Purpose was not to make money. The purpose was to help people to be able to make sense out of the nonsensical stuff that we've all experienced, and give them some guideposts to help them on their journeys. Yeah.
I highly, highly recommend the book. And again, as I said at the beginning of this podcast, you'll have a much more if you can still find a way to call Dr. Malone a deep state disinformation agent, then you are either a very manipulative psychopath, and I approve of your work ethic, or you are truly pulling off some Olympic grade mental gymnastics, which is also I'm impressed by the work ethic. But the book is the book is very much, there's nothing to be gained from it. It's Eisenhower. There's nothing to be gained from it. You're just pointing out kind of these themes in society, and to follow the truth and integrity. Hey man, if it turns out that you're a deep state agent, then hey, hats off to the CIA, because they've won the game.
That's yeah. So
they've won.
That's the joke version of that is, if I'm a deep state CIA operative, I'm probably the worst spy in the history of the United States.
Or the best.
But it is what it is. So thanks for the time.
Of course.
And for sharing, as always, your insights, and particularly your deep understanding of military history.
It's a weird one. I don't know why I have it.
Yeah, I think I took away from your little journey on the walk between Ike and JFK. I wonder if that interaction was what set JFK on the road to his profound distrust of the intelligence community and the CIA.
I think it was. I think
that conversation set things in motion that eventually led to his assassination. It's fascinating talking to Bobby Kennedy about these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
He's full of stories from his youth. He remembers vividly Robert McNamara calling his father on a weekly basis. And he was sharing some of those in our interview on the book just last week. It's as if that window of time in the early 60s was a nexus. And a lot of things happened then. And I feel in some ways that we didn't pass the test. And I hope that we can do better this time as we recover from the COVID crisis.
I think that walk they went on, I think it's because you got to remember, John F. Kennedy you can listen to it's wild. You can go on YouTube and listen to phone calls between them, especially during the Cuban Missile Crisis. It's the most surreal thing in the world. And even then, he would still only refer to him as general. You got to remember, he was a veteran too. Mm-hmm. And I think that walk really did, because JFK gutted a lot of Eisenhower's continuity of government programs as soon as he got in office. He thought they were absurd. He thought they were paranoid. The czar system, where Eisenhower's going to set up a post-nuclear war economy. I think that, much like by emulating your enemy's actions, you sink to their level. The beauty is in this universe, it's duality, and the opposite's also true. In a weird way, it's almost like Eisenhower's just tongue lashing of a lifetime can almost imagine is like the spark transferring from the 5-star general of the supreme commander of the Allied forces, for lack of a better term, gave John F. Kennedy some balls, and he went out there against the CIA, against Curtis LeMay, against the mob, against the Soviets, against everything. I mean, the speeches he was giving about secrecy being repugnant.
Yeah.
I mean, that dude walked into the fire with no protection, and you got to wonder, where did that come? Was it the deeply religious faith with patriotism? Probably a blend of it. I think the walk with JFK is, or with Eisenhower, in my own mind, is probably one of the more uh, important moments in the history of our country, because it did transfer some of Ike to JFK. And it was just like, do the right thing, because I think nothing of you. And years later, Eisenhower would talk about JFK posthumously and talk about his courage and his bravery. And it's like, that didn't come from anywhere. Eisenhower looked down on him as a pretty boy. And he's later standing there going like, that guy had like balls of steel.
Rose to the occasion.
Yeah. Rose to the office. It made him a bigger man. So,
well, that's a good place to part.
Sure.
Is,
Yeah.
is all of us, I think.
Well, yeah. Rise to your own occasion. Rise to your own office.
Yeah. Rise. Try to fulfill your own potential.
Talk to the Eisenhower in your own mind. Imagine Ike's taking you on a walk around your apartment. Next time you go to the store and buy some Oreos, imagine Ike's following you. And he's like, you reposted that meme and you knew it wasn't true. You'd be like, all right, I'm sorry. And he'd be like, you're afraid to speak the truth because of the government. And it's JFK looking at you like, secrecy is repugnant. It's just, you're like, all right, I'll do the right thing. Just, yeah, that's my advice to you.
New meme. Yeah, what would Ike do?
But what would Ike do? But yeah, that's where I'll leave this episode. My advice to you is, imagine dead presidents are talking to you in a grocery store. That's my advice to you, the listener. But with that, Dr. Malone, let's wrap this one up. I'll put your book in the description. I would like to do an episode with you specifically about the book, because it's a fantastic book. Put your Substack in the description. Go read the article, Sins of Information Warfare. And yeah, I don't know. Do the right thing. All that good stuff. So, yep. Dr. Malone, thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. As always, I love you. I love Dr. Glasspool. You guys are truly wonderful human beings, and it's an honor to know you guys. So much love. Thank you so much.